Welcome to Gaia's Calling, where stories ignite your spirit and the earth whispers her secrets. I'm Brad Swift, a right-on-purpose author of eco-fiction and nonfiction, inviting you to become an eco-guardian. Together, let's explore the wonders of our world and take action to protect them. Listen closely. Gaia is calling. And Gaia's call today is about Trimtabs of Transformation, what Buckminster Fuller, A Friday with Logan, and the Earth Listening Circle taught me about real change. So my question is, are you ready to become a Trimtab in your life? If you've ever seen an oil tanker or a massive ship, like a cruise ship, etc., you might wonder, how does something so immense ever change direction? It turns out the answer lies in a small, often overlooked component called a Trimtab. A Trimtab is a tiny rudder attached to the main rudder of the ship. While it's small, it plays an outsized role in steering the entire vessel. By adjusting the Trimtab, a tiny hydrodynamic force is created. This force makes it easier for the main rudder to turn, which in turn allows the ship to pivot more effectively. In essence, the Trimtab provides leverage, enabling a massive ship to change course with minimal effort. Without it, maneuvering something so large would be nearly impossible. This little piece of nautical engineering became a life metaphor for one of my greatest heroes, Buckminster Fuller. Fuller was an inventor, visionary, and a relentless advocate for systems thinking, seeing how interconnected parts shape the whole. He believed that even the smallest, most intentional actions could create ripples of change far beyond their immediate scope. So much so that he had the word Trimtab engraved on his tombstone. Why? Well, because Fuller saw the Trimtab as a symbol of hope and responsibility. It reminds us that we don't have to overhaul the entire system single-handedly to make a difference. By being thoughtful and strategic, by focusing on the points of leverage, we can steer even the most unwieldy systems towards positive change. So let's look at Trimtabs in action. Think about this. Rosa Parks refusing to give up her bus seat might seem like a small action, but that moment became a Trimtab, amplifying the civil rights movement and steering the course of history. Greta Thunberg, sitting outside the Swedish parliament with a hand-painted sign, became a Trimtab, catalyzing a global climate strike. The Trimtab isn't the end goal. It's the small, strategic action that sets larger changes in motion. And often, we don't know ahead of time which of our actions will become Trimtabs. That's part of the mystery and the magic. But when we act from a place of alignment with our values, with the four great truths, we increase the likelihood that our ripples become waves. The idea of a Trimtab resonates deeply with the mission of one cause. Tackling the climate crisis might seem overwhelming. It is a global ship, after all, with the weight of centuries of harmful habits and systems. But what if this movement, this book, and the conversations it sparks could act as a Trimtab? What if it's the small shift that helps humanity pivot towards a more regenerative and sustainable course? You too could be a Trimtab. The beauty of the Trimtab metaphor is that it's not reserved for visionaries or global movements. Each of us can be a Trimtab in our own way. It might be through a conversation that changes someone's perspective, a decision to live more sustainably, or even by supporting larger efforts that align with our values. Here are a few examples of small beginnings that turned into powerful Trimtabs trim tabs. And with each of these, there's a link. If you go to the Substack itself, either in the app or online, there'll be links to find out more about these. For example, in Washington, D.C., what began as a one neighborhood compost project grew into the Community Compost Cooperative Network, managing over 50 local sites and processing up to 50 tons of organic waste each month. A tiny shift in one backyard rippled out to a citywide sustainability model. And in Queensland, Australia, a few high school students at Emmanuel's, I think it is, college, sparked a chance by launching a simple school-wide clothing swap. Their small action expanded into a culture shift around sustainable fashion education among peers. And what about what started a small backyard in Des Moines, Iowa, which became the Sweet Tooth Farm, supplying thousands of pounds of food annually and pioneering a community compost pickup service, a personal project that filled a public need. And there's Seed Savers Exchange, which began when a few everyday gardeners in Iowa shared heirloom seeds with one another. But today, they preserve over 25,000 plant varieties, protecting biodiversity across the country. A humble trade turned into a heritage-preserving powerhouse. And how about across the UK, where teen-led groups like Swoop It Up, I think that's the correct term, began by organizing clothing swaps in schools. Their efforts blossomed into a national campaign that combines youth leadership with climate awareness. In India, a local seed-saving effort among female farmers grew into Relentless, a collective that now empowers rural women through a sustainable agriculture and biodiversity protection. It started with a seed and a circle of care. Quietly but powerfully, families around the world are switching to credit unions and ethical banks that refuse to fund fossil fuel projects. A small change in where they bank is sending ripples through the financial system. These may seem small, but they are placed at points of leverage. They are trim tabs. As Buckminster Fuller put it, call me Trimtab. Trim tabs in my own life. I've started to notice a few trim tabs showing up in my own life. One of them began with a simple choice, inviting my grandson Logan to spend Fridays with us at our home. We call it a day-long play date with Granddude and Grandma. On the surface, it's just fun family time. But beneath that, something bigger is forming. As we spend time in the garden, plant seeds together, and talk about ideas like reciprocity, we're getting a taste of what life could be like when his whole family moves here to live with us at the loving homestead. That weekly rhythm has helped anchor our vision and fuel our resolve. Another trim tab moment? Well, at least I think so, maybe in the making. Hosting our first Earth Listening Circle at Highland Lake Cove. It started with a small group gathered in nature, listening deeply. But I can always sense it expanding towards greater connection, community resilience, and a sense of local belonging I hadn't quite known was missing. That one circle might be the start of something more, or even something transformative. Truth times truth times truth times truth equals regeneration. The four great truths, interconnection, sufficiency, reciprocity, and stewardship, aren't just ideas to ponder. They are powerful levers, especially when practiced together. They are spiritual and practical trim tabs. Each time we choose to compost instead of trash, or share instead of hoard, or listen instead of control, we are shifting the direction of the ship. We don't have to change everything all at once, but we can change something with care, and that changes everything. So here's a closing invitation. If the world feels too big to shift, ask yourself, where is my trim tab? What's the small action that, with just the right placement, could help turn the tide? Take it. Trust it. And if you're unsure, start by listening. Nature will guide you. And you just might find that one small shift was enough to change the course. And here's a P.S. What's been a trim tab in your life lately? Hit the reply or comment section and share with me. I'd love to hear the small steps you've taken that became something more. After all, that's how movements begin, with small, courageous, purposeful acts, just like yours.